I'm going to record this forward facing because I've got real scruffy facial hair and I don't feel like being on camera. But I want to address this comment that is very good from Zinc Owl that I think does a great job of, in my opinion, capturing what is the issue that people who miss Digibro have. And I've really been trying to shake off, like, the Digibro fans. In the sense that, like, whatever it is that's different about me that those people, like, can't, like, come to terms with, like, whatever it is that they see Trixie and they go, I just can't relate to this, like, I don't think they're ever going to. I think there's this expectation that certain fans of mine have that I'm, like, just... I don't know why. I don't know why they think that the past can come back, but the past cannot return. There is no doing things the way they were done before when you live in a different world than the world you lived in when you did things that way before. And, like, I don't really know what they think, like, could happen to appease them, but I've just been trying to get rid of them, you know, like, as best I can. And so, you know, I had this comment response video where I talked to somebody who was a Digibro fan who was kind of, you know, dumping their feelings about the changes, and I responded with quite a bit of vitriol. And this person is sympathetic to that person's perspective, but in a way that they were able to much better explain themselves. So, Zinc Gallo says, I sort of empathize with that person was saying from the POV of seeing something and desperately wanting it to be successful within one's own simplified framework of understanding. I notice similar sentiments when people are talking about their favorite film directors' box office numbers like it's football and worrying about them not promoting their new movie enough. But in the end, all it is just an infantile fit about candy being gone and myopic projection. I liked Digi, sorry, because it was simple and appealing to males specifically, which is why I think there's so much weird mixture of grievance and lament around losing him, while Trixie is expansive and earnest and not uniform in their aesthetic. They do not embody self-hatred, and I think a lot of men use deep self-hatred as glue to keep themselves together, probably because from their corner any change is seen as, or implies, total disintegration, the best Cure album. We hate to be lost. Your charisma was intoxicating then and still is now. Call it a writing style or aesthetic or whatever. I realized my interest in you as a persona had nothing to do with anime, and I think for some people Digi was or is harder to part with because you embodied their own internal experience to a very authentic degree and included various addictions like anime into it. But it's also as likely they're just not as introspective or self-reflective or healthy. I remember how I realized I didn't even watch your big popular edited analysis videos. I just liked the thought of them being there. While I only watched everything on Digibro after dark because looking back on it now, I was playing this game where it felt good to sort of live this simplified image of Digibro's life as a successful dweeb. And I think a lot of this kind of audience are clinging on to you about your old stuff. That it was so cool and romantic when you could be a total wreck, but the money was coming in regardless, because despite how toxic and unhealthy Digi were even to himself, he somehow were still considered a successful man from a certain rather incessant material perspective. So much for success, I guess. I said you nailed it perfectly. And I think that there's multiple aspects to this, because I've been attacking mostly the transphobia and homophobia aspect, right? Like, I don't think that many of the fans who were following me back then, who were interested in anime titties and, you know, like, particularly when I, like, had a girlfriend, like, there was the period of time when I had the most success was right around when, like, right before I got with a partner, and then in the very early period of having a partner. And initially, even having a partner was very heavily rejected by my audience, and the type of like, the way I changed my content to around the fact that I had a partner, you know, affected things a lot. But it was sort of like I was still doing those mainstream analysis videos for a little while. And then once I kind of started really experimenting even on the main channel, like you said, that's when I started, like, when I took a huge hit. Like, when it stopped being that there was those normal, regular anime analysis videos that people are used to, then like even when I tried bringing them back or like doing them interspersed with other types of things, it never quite hit the same. Like as soon as it became apparent to people that there was like a big shift, then the money never came in the same way. And for a long time, I was trying to just replicate what had happened before. Like I was trying to desperately claw back to where I had been using the same techniques, and it just didn't work. And I repeated that cycle a few times, and really doing Anime Alphabet was kind of the last straw, where it was like I got like 8 months into putting out a monthly like massive anime analysis project that was always about a classic show, that was always like me putting as much effort into it as I possibly could. And some of those have paid off in the way I knew they would, because I knew they were all videos that would gain more over time because they're about classic shows. But I just thought they would hit a lot harder in the moment, and that they would be bigger by now than they are, So like that was the last time that I was really trying to recreate what I had before, and it just was too little too late. I couldn't afford to do things that way because it takes a ton of effort to make those videos, and if they don't make a ton of money, then it's not a fair trade. So it came to be that I started trying to figure out like, what can I get away with? Like, what can I do that people will pay for, but isn't going to be too much for me to do because I'm trying to do something that was impressive 8 years ago and isn't necessarily now. Now, the funniest thing to me about this whole, Digibro identity debacle is that like my actual lifestyle right now for the last year has been the closest to being exactly like it was at the height of my career that it's been since then. Where like it's mostly been me kind of by myself at a desk deep into the night, looking for stuff to make videos about, making lots of videos, being in lots of agony over my emotions and what I'm trying to communicate to my audience, trying to figure out what exactly I'm doing in my career, and then checking in with, now it's my husband, but I used to check in with Vic or Shade, my brothers, pretty much the same amount that I that I check in with my husband, because he works a full-time job, and sleeps through a lot of the hours that I work. I pretty much sleep while he's at work. And, I see my parents, and I'm in like the same, I'm in a room over a garage and an office, like by myself most of the time. So my lifestyle, practically speaking, is exactly the fucking same as it was when I was at the height of my popularity. Now the content is different, and maybe if I just made videos that were exactly like that Anime Dissociatives video, because that one's pretty successful, right? 21,000 views, hasn't really moved since getting to that point, but it's the most successful one on We Watch Anime. So if it was maybe just videos like that once a month, eventually there would be a grab. But again, like 20K isn't enough by itself, where like if I did that for 5 months and it was still at that level, it wouldn't be enough, even compared to putting out tons of small videos that just make a few bucks, but there's so many of them that the super engaged audience still makes me money and still throws me bones every once in a while, especially if I talk about things they specifically want me to. So like, it's easier for me to cater to a very small audience that's really intense than it is for me to cater to a middling-sized audience. If I had a huge audience, it would be different, but it has to happen all at once. Like if I'm, sitting in that middle situation where I'm putting in tons of work and not getting that much reward and not really satisfying that many people, because if I put out a video only once a month and half of my core audience doesn't care about that video, that's a whole month that they got nothing. Whereas if I put out a video every single day and each one appeals to 1/10 of my core audience, that means that there's like 3 or 4 hits a month per person. If someone's going to click on the fucking thing, and maybe they'll super appreciate it and, again, send me money. So this model I've been building, it makes sense to me, because I see how the money flows. it's just a matter of like overcoming the emotional aspect of like the way people think about me, and also the way people think about paying creators, because I set up all these paradigms over the years where it was like, you know, I had like a structure for how people buy rants, or I had a structure for how people pay for my Patreon, or I had all these different things on offer. And a lot of that stuff, like people who weren't buying into it were just kind of observing it and going, wow, look at all that money. But like on the inside, there was constantly things going wrong. Like on the Patreon end, my like the story of all of my undelivered and late rewards would be long, you know, like because I just overpromised all the time, and I didn't really understand what I was offering until much, much later, you know, until it was a lot harder to actually, and even then, I would say not until like now do I know what exactly my content is worth. I made a deal today, like somebody paid me $50 to review a 30-minute video that they made. It took me like 70 minutes to do the video, and very minimal editing. I didn't watch the whole thing back even. I just edited the parts I knew had to be edited. So all in all, it was probably like, well, since I was watching the video and commenting on it at once, so it was like 70, 80, probably like 80 minutes of work for $50, and I didn't hate the video. And it has, you know, it's good cross promotion for that person's channel, and it's a, you know, decent video for my channel. So it like makes sense as a piece of content. So even if I thought I was worth more than $50 for an hour and a half of work, you know, at the very least, I'm still getting something on the other end of that. So like that's a type of model where like to an audience member who's just looking at my Patreon, they don't see me suddenly making $50 unless they watch this video, you know? And so it doesn't create that sense of, oh, I'm this successful dweeb, like you said, even though like in the early part of being Digibro, I wasn't making a ton of money. I just, again, didn't know what the money was worth. So like, you know, I had quit my job, my day job, like the second I started making money at all. And the first couple years, I think I made 11 grand the first year and 13 grand the second year, which is like, I think below minimum wage. I think the first year it was below minimum wage for like a full-time employee in the US for a year. And then the second year I broke minimum wage, and I was excited about that because to me that meant viable. Like in my mind, minimum wage is the minimum standard of living. So that means if you're making at least minimum wage, you are living a viable lifestyle. And I was happy with that. I was like, oh my God, this is survivable, you know? And then when I really started blowing up, I suddenly made it up to a middle class level of income. And I had no idea what that meant or what to do with it. If I could go back in time and suddenly be making $6 grand a month, I would be immediately taking half of that and putting it directly into some kind of investment thing, probably just the what's it called, the the main stock where you just buy the stock market. I'd probably just put it into that or the bank, you know, like because I have a pretty good bank. So I would just put most of the money away and not touch it at all, and then think really hard about how I spent the rest of it. But I didn't know what anything was worth. I didn't know what your rent was supposed to cost. I didn't know that like the ratio of what your rent should be compared to your income. My dad never told me that. I don't know why. Never bothered giving me that statistic. So, you know, I just blew through money tremendously quickly the second that I hit that level of success, and then stopped having that level of success and spent the next few years learning the value of money. So, you know, I get the perspective of you were successful dweeb in the sense that you're losing your mind watching anime, but at least you're making money off of it because you're so good at explaining it. And that's true, but it doesn't lead to anything other than that lifestyle. It doesn't lead you out. If you want out of it, it doesn't lead you out of it. And I wanted out of it. It wasn't supposed to ever be a permanent state. It was not supposed to be something you do because it's fun. It's something you do out of necessity until you don't have to do it anymore, you know? And I didn't know what that would mean. What will not having to do it anymore look like? Will it mean that I, graduate on to becoming some sort of actor? Like, the main thing that I was pushing for with the PCP was that we did all these like comedy group videos together. We basically were like, I was trying to basically form like a sketch comedy podcasting troupe. Like one part podcasting, one part sketch comedy. They kind of get fused into together, and like that was the energy, but it never really materialized into something that made sense because nobody had like a really clear vision for it. So it was always kind of slapdash impressionistic weirdness that never had like one consistent identity, partly because nobody wanted to be in charge of it. We all kind of wanted it to be our side gig. Nobody wanted it to be our main gig. So like my inability to find a like main thing I wanted to do was what led me out of really viewing my YouTube channel as like my main creative pursuit. I started viewing it as like just the job I'm doing in the background. And I always kind of had it in my head that if my career had fallen through, I was going to move back in with my parents and just like grind out an amazing novel. Like that was what I thought in my head. I'll just spend a month doing nothing but writing an amazing novel. And I had that opportunity when Bird and I moved in with my parents the first time back in 2021. And I started writing that novel, and I got like 3 chapters in, and I did not know how to write the next chapter. And then I went, okay, well, maybe I'll just write something else. And I just kind of realized I can't just sit down and write a great novel in a month. I don't necessarily have that skill set or that amount of experience or that knowledge or like. And so I spent the next few years mostly worried about expanding my understanding of the world. The more worldliness I have, the better I can do the writing job. And as I expanded my understanding of the world, I came to realize there's other things I enjoy even more than, sitting around watching anime or writing or any of that, like going on cool hikes. For a time, I really wasn't sure that I was going to come back to doing YouTube videos. And like, I fully retired in 2022. I had a period of time where I was experimenting with doing different styles of video content that I didn't really show anybody at the time that I made them. Like I made Media Melt Magazine, and I made this channel called High Cat Storyteller. And there's plenty of times I've done like lots of prep work for projects that just nobody's gonna see because I did a bunch of prep, realized it wasn't gonna work, and I didn't do it. And that's most of my non-YouTube projects. Anything that's not like something I clearly know how to do, then I will end up with just a half-finished, half-baked version of it. But it feels like I've been trying to branch away from this thing like the whole time. And then when I finally did travel around the country and see everything and come back with all this new perspective, I had just as much new vigor for making YouTube videos as for everything else because I felt like I have a new perspective. So, I storyboarded a comic that I sold to Mint Salad. I started doing my own drawings, my own comic drawings, doing more creative writing on the side. I started doing live streams more often. I started, writing anime analysis videos again because like 2023, I literally spent the whole year traveling America and meeting people and seeing things and having brand new experiences and really opening my mind in ways that changed how I feel about everything, everything I consume, everything I create. So that's where the inspiration came from. And I think it's always important to go out and, collect new inspiration. And obviously that's what I was trying to do in my room at my desk, was collect as much inspiration as I could from that vantage point. But there was lots of stuff I just didn't understand. It was hard for me to understand live action movies because I didn't understand people enough. And now it's a lot easier. Like there's just so much of culture that has been opened up to me because I understand where it's coming from now. and in a way that I couldn't before. You know, I've literally been to the places that I see in shows, so I know what the fuck they're talking about. So it changes my reality. And all of that is, you know, again, what I consider to be the difference between me and Digibro is Digibro didn't have any of those experiences and wouldn't have, because Digibro wouldn't have met or been around the people like Bird, you know? Like, and so, like, it's there's a lot I could say about, like, I think Digibro himself was a homophobic and transphobic character, because so much of his expression comes from an egg perspective of, like, saying gay shit, but I don't do gay shit though, you know? But, like, now I do gay shit. And so it all hits different. You know, and people can convince themselves, like, people will go back and listen to the Digibro stuff and convince themselves that is still them, that is still somehow relatable. But it's like, you didn't write a song about stuffing a whole umbrella up your asshole and then, you know, like, get with a guy. And, like, it's not like I never had anything up my asshole before I wrote that bar either. And it's not that I don't think any of the straight men who like Digibro also don't like getting pegged. I'm just saying that it's a far smaller percentage, right? Like, once it actually sinks in that, like, oh, you meant all that gay shit. Oh, you meant all that stuff that you said kind of semi-ironically or whatever. There's no one sucking that dick. That's what I really need the Digibro fans to understand. You don't go back to being ironically homophobic when you are gay, you know? Like, it's just not the same world. And I get why those people think, like, it's all jokes, because it's the same way Digibro thought it's all jokes. But once you are actually on the other side of, like, being somebody who is with a man, and you're like, people don't make those kind of jokes around me in person, by the way. Like, the relationship people have with Digibro is like with a person that they felt like it was just them and him. Whereas, like, if you met me in real life, it wouldn't be you and Digibro. You know, it would be you and Trixie and Bird, you know, and, like, it would be, oh, this is someone's wife. Like, this is someone's partner. This is like a part of someone else's life. And I'm stepping into this world. And, like, you know, the people who really, like, keep up with Trixie content, like, y'all know who Bird is. So that's not, like, it's not weird to them. To the people who know me, who know Trixie, who know this content, they get this. They're like, yeah, you're Bird's wife, you know, like, we understand. But, like, those Digibro fans, that I don't think has sunk in. I don't think they get that. I think they believe that somehow there's, like, a reversion switch where I, you know, like, I could grow my beard all the way back out. It wouldn't bring Digibro back. Like, you know, it's just not a phase that you can return to. So, you know, I appreciate when somebody like this is able to express what you liked about Digibro in a way that is honest. You know, it's like, yeah, I related to the idea that this guy is just like me, and he makes money being just like me. He's not doing anything other than being just like me, and he's making money doing it. But, like, if you think that the only thing that's making you unhappy is that you don't have enough money, what are you planning to do with the money? What is the money for? If you're perfectly happy, except that you don't have money, what the fuck do you need the money for? And so as soon as I got money and I started spending it in ways that people don't relate to, because Oh, I wasn't going to spend my money on weed. Oh, I wasn't going to spend my money on going out to eat. Oh, I wasn't going to spend my money on getting laid. I wasn't going to spend it on going on excursions or camping trips. I wasn't going to spend it on I wasn't going to spend it on any of those things that you did. You know, that's when it started to break down. That's when the relationship started to cave in. When it became, oh, I'm supposed to relate to you, but I don't like your girlfriend. Oh, I'm supposed to relate to you, but I don't like the way you spend your money or spend your time or the things that you're doing with your life now. And again, that makes sense. I became more complicated and therefore harder to relate to. And it asks more of you as a consumer to like set aside the difference between us, to appreciate the content, to understand that no two people are that similar. And the reason that you feel like you relate to me better than most people is because you are under socialized. You have not met enough people like me. I've met thousands of people like me. I get DMs every day from people telling me how much they are like me. I get thank you letters. I get literal mail. Back when I had a P.O. box, I would get literal mail of people sending me information about themselves. And the story is usually pretty similar. And eventually I started telling those people, y'all got to start befriending each other. There's not enough me to go around. And that happened. A bunch of people formed different communities and different cliques. A lot of them don't even watch my content anymore, don't even talk about me. They're in their own world with their own friends that they made through my content ages ago. They don't even think of my content as a part of it anymore, And then there's people who are friends because of my content today, people who watch me every day and I'm a part of their culture. And we are a culture. The people who are around my channel all the time, I'm going to say 700 of you who are always there. It's very rare I get less than that. That's the least views I ever get is 700. So I'm okay. There's a locked in 700 people that are a part of Trixie culture. Obviously, it's probably not the same 700 people every single time. I'm just saying. We'll average it out to 700 people are a part of Trixie culture. A lot of them I can recognize the names. If you left a comment, there's a lot of people who've probably never left a comment. They're just lurkers. That's fine. I'm not tasking you to do that. Sometimes I am, but not this time. Anyway, this is a totally random ramble. I was just inspired by that comment because I feel like I bully Digibro fans a lot, particularly the ones who don't like Trixie, because I don't understand why they're watching. This person clearly, even though they were a Digibro fan, has accepted Trixie, understands Trixie, and even if they're not as big of a fan because it's not literally me as a character, that's fine. I don't. There's many. Let me break down Coheed and Cambria for you. Coheed and Cambria's first album is one of my favorite albums ever. I can return to it any day, and it's always great. Their second album, also fantastic. Their third album, fantastic. Their fourth album, fantastic. Their fifth album, their sixth album, their seventh album, ooh. Their eighth album, oh. Their ninth album, their 10th album, and their upcoming 11th album seems promising. I might have skipped one in there. Are they on 11 or 12? There's a lot of Coheed albums. Look, I really relate to early Coheed and Cambria. But in that same fashion, I know that it's because of how simple of a person he was when he was making those songs. And that I just happen to relate to those very core aspects of his being very well. But everything about who he became after, becoming a touring celebrity in a massive band for the rest of his life, that's a different guy. And it took a long time for me to understand what that guy's about. Who are these songs for? Because they all have different purposes. It used to be he was just writing the best songs he possibly could. Now he's writing songs for reasons. And you can figure out those reasons if you really like look into the interviews and know the guy and know all the music, but it's not hitting me the same way. Granted, a couple years ago they put out the song Comatose, possibly my favorite Coheed and Cambria song ever. I only like 2 songs on the entire album, Comatose and the one right after it, but Comatose is one of the best songs they've ever made. So, like, I don't think that Claudio suddenly became, like, a shitty creator or that, like, he's ever going to go back to making albums the way I want him to. But I know that the seed is still in there, and that song is very much, like, playing on those old emotions, and it's kind of about the development he's had in being, like, the text of that song is, I have borderline personality disorder, like the literal text, you're borderline, which is the subtext of all of the music. So if you just take that one song, it's like, oh, this is the codex to what you were experiencing. I'm so afraid to let you know I'm letting go. Oh, I'm such a mess. Baby, this game's over. A one-man prison and no one gets in. I start to finish, but just sit and spin alone. Don't get too close. I don't want to feel. Baby, keep me comatose. That is the exact, like, that is the train of thought that would lead me into going to listen to Coheed and Cambria's first album. Like, if I had that whole spiel come out of me, that means I'm about to go listen to Coheed and Cambria. So that's where I am like, okay, this captures the core appeal of this better than ever before, but there's also all these other songs that aren't for me. They're for his fucking kid, or they're for, like, the 50,000 people that go to the show, that can afford to go to the show, you know? I've got my old albums, and I've seen them live, and I've got my old live DVDs. I don't need Claudio to endlessly make me new things that are exactly for me. For me to keep supporting him and checking out his new stuff, you know, and determining for myself if I'm going to like it or not. And even giving it a second chance. I've gone back to these albums that I don't like, and I know I don't like them, but I keep going back and listening because I'm like, maybe I'll like it a little more now that I'm older. There's a few songs that, yeah, you do kind of like them a little more now that you're older. Than other ones, they're just kind of dog shit. But, you know, it is what it is. I don't know where this video falls in. It's just a kind of impassioned rant. I at some point I realized that ranting in the garage and responding to comments is really fun. So now I guess I'm just doing it. All right, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Thank you to Zinc Owl, and Digibro stays dead forever.